All right, welcome to The Boost, conversations with people promoting mental health. I'm here with my co-host for the next few shows, Reggie D. Ford. Reggie, how are you?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's good to see you. It's
Yeah,
good to see you.
I'm back, baby.
Yeah, you were a guest a few weeks ago, and the vibe is just so good.
We got good energy, so I think this is going to be a great episode. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we've got just a serendipitous guest who is an absolute expert across almost any and all facets or fields of mental health and addiction treatment and SUD and nonprofit, organizational, operational. I could go on, but we'll get into it in a minute.
And on.
But first, one thing that I've learned from Reggie, among the many things, is a little bit of the practice of hot yoga.
Yes.
So I'm rocking, if you can see, I'm rocking the Small World Yoga hoodie. It is like butter soft inside. Like that.
It's the best hoodie I've ever had, and I'm not even exaggerating. It is one of my favorite hoodies ever.
Yeah, like it is so soft. Like, it's one thing you pick something, you get some cheap sunglasses at a trade show booth or something. So this is a nonprofit, actually the only nonprofit yoga studio in Nashville.
That's correct.
And you're on the board.
Yes. So I'm on the board of Small World Yoga. Small's in the name, but it's not small. We serve thousands of people across Nashville and Middle Tennessee area every month, and providing access to yoga. That is a big part of it, and inclusion through it all. So it's one of my favorite missions that I've been involved in, and yoga is a huge part of my life. And we got to share a little bit of time on the mat together. What was that, last Monday?
Yeah.
Last week?
Yeah, we flowed together, and it absolutely kicked my behind. Is what I'll say here on camera. So what I had done, and this is a little bit of mental health, I'll say, because I've said this before, but my brother has this saying: race cars have brakes, so they go faster. So after the mental health marketing conference in October, I usually take a little break. So that included this year taking a break from working out and exercise. So I just let it go. And then I take notes on my phone every time I hit the gym. So I got back into the gym about a month later, and I noticed, okay, it's been a little while. So, okay, let's get back to it. It's like a little encouraging message to myself. And then the next day I took 2 months off.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you hit the brakes.
So it was
really hit the brakes.
It was like hibernation winter mode at the time. I got through the holidays, and then I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. Like, I think this is what needed to happen. Sometimes for me, you know? And so then to get back into the studio, and I've done some hot yoga before, but this caught me at the moment where it was like the perfect reset. It was like lights go on. You're going to be in pain for a while, but also like I just came away from that session ecstatic.
Your energy level is lifted, your spirit is lifted, and like you said, for that moment, it's temporary. So you may be in it and it hurts to be an eagle or to be in a crow pose or whatever it may be, but it's temporary. And I think that's one of the things I love about yoga is it's a great metaphor for the challenging things in our life. It's temporary. We get through it. We learn different resources to breathe, to lean on our neighbors, and we get through those difficult moments. And so you're still here. It's good to see. Your hamstrings are intact.
Yeah, no, I think my body was like gonna cramp into eagle mode at that night. I was like, and then I sweat out so many toxins and salt that in the middle of the night I woke up craving pickles. So I needed to replace the salt, like the brininess.
Okay, so you had some pregnant cravings in the middle of the night. That's what yoga does for you, hey?
I think, yeah. I think it was like, I don't know the pains of childbirth, but I think this is like next level. Is going to Cody's 60-minute course. So
hey, shout out to Cody.
So if you're in town, if you're in Nashville, check out Small World Yoga. Even if you're just flying through for a conference or something like that, or going boot scooting later, hit up the studio. It's very cool, awesome people, and get you a hoodie. We will be right back after this with our wonderful guest. All right, we're back on The Boost with our guest, Stacy DiStefano. Stacy, how are you?
I am excited to be here. I have my Nashville denim just for you guys.
Got you. Those are
Thank you for dressing up
some
for us.
Boots
We appreciate
down there.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not from Nashville. You're from Philly.
I am. Proudly.
Proudly from Philly.
Proudly. Bleed green. Yes. All the things.
Yes. And And we're recording this with you not knowing that what's going to happen in the Super Bowl. It's going to air afterwards.
She knows. She knows and believes deep in her core.
I don't want to jinx it. So I don't want to talk about the outcome, but I do have a good vibe in my core.
You have a good vibe.
You should have a good vibe, though. This has been a fantastic year for you all. I'm
hope.
hoping that the green comes out victorious.
Thank you.
And I got a couple of friends who are playing from Vanderbilt, so shout out to them, and I want to see the green take it. So.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
You listening? Let's
Yeah.
hope. Okay.
Oh, word. Who's playing?
So we got Oren Burks, who was a DB linebacker, plays linebacker now, number 42. And then Kari Blasingame, who's a running back at Vandy, but a fullback now with the Eagles. So
Love it.
yeah, I want to see them succeed.
They might be celebrating down on the parade.
Yeah, on Broad Street.
Let's hope. Otherwise, we're going to have another mental health conversation. We're going to have a different podcast.
The whole city's going to burn some
city.
stuff down. Yeah.
You know, that's a good point. Like, sports can really kind of get into your blood a little bit and kind of whiplash you. I won't talk about specifics with my family, but it's like there's some people that get really impacted by the outcome of sports that they are not playing in.
Oh, I'm married to one of those people. Yes, I'm very familiar with that. Yeah. Make or break the mood for days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's been hard for me because as a former player, like if I have a way to impact the game, I'm like, yes, I'm in, and the emotion that I get if we lose is big. It's a big, sad, angry emotion. But when I watch something else that I have no control over, I cannot get invested in it. So I can see teams win, lose it, and I can't get invested into it. Like, so I think that's something, I think that's good for me. It's been good for my mental health on a Monday morning when Titans lose. So.
Like, meh, another day.
Yeah, it's just another day.
It's a lot of Monday mornings,
A
my
lot,
friend.
a lot of Monday mornings, yes. Yeah.
Well, let's get into some positive vibes with the virtual hug and then the shameless plug. So the virtual hug is tell us somebody or something you're grateful for today.
Oh my gosh. I am a brand new 5 months in grandma.
Congratulations.
Mimi, thank you.
Mimi.
So my beautiful granddaughter, Sophia, what a joy. A joy that I did not even expect. So incredibly grateful for that hug.
Yes.
For sure. I mean, it's next level.
Can't beat
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, can't beat
that's
it.
a
That's
blessing.
that's the
Oh, that's
apex
beautiful.
hug right
No,
there.
The first time the other day we went to see her, we probably see her like every other week, walked in and smiled and reached out and touched my face, and I was just a mess. Like
you melted.
anything you want, you can have. I mean, you can't be in a bad mood.
Yeah.
That was just, it's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Wow.
One of my favorite things to do is look at pictures of my daughter when she's about that age. And actually, one of her favorite things to do, she was doing it literally this morning, is going through and just, it just takes you back to that little cute little time. They're just little
Nothing
balls
like
of cuteness. And you're just like, oh, anything you want or need. Yes,
Yeah.
here you go.
Yeah, nothing like it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
I had no part in that, but thank you.
Well, you had a part.
Well,
you had
yeah,
a part.
a little
Without
part.
you, then
Yeah.
your daughter wouldn't have, So, yeah.
Our son and his,
Your
and his
son,
wife,
yeah.
It's great.
Awesome.
That's good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And tell us your shameless plug. This is where you tell us about CFHS and all the things you do.
Yes, thank you. Consulting for Human Services, our human service consultancy. The most impactful thing I've done in my career truly is working with an incredible team of clinicians, subject matter experts. We have every single industry covered, from CFO to compliance to business development to strategy. All of the things. We act as an extension of our clients' executive teams. Our clients are mostly nonprofit provider organizations in human services. So mental health, addiction, IDD, autism, homelessness services, all the things, from the smallest $1 million rural provider in the Midwest to the largest $600, $700 million multi-state providers that do such important work. It's incredibly important to us to keep them viable. And so a lot of merger and acquisition work, a lot of strategic planning, a lot of business development, just organizational assessment, fractional C-suite, anything. We're here for them, but it's really work that fills my cup. So Thanks for
beautiful.
giving me the minute to shout it out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sure.
Thank you for all the work that you
Yeah,
do
it's
for
great.
those organizations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How did you get into it? How did you get into that line?
Yeah, so I have always worked, I'm a mental health clinician by training. I've always worked in nonprofit.
What's your licensure?
So there's a tie to that. I don't have my license because I got my degree in Arizona and did my supervision there. And I took, then I moved when I had twins, they're now 27, moved to New Jersey to be closer to my family, and then took the NBCC licensure exam, which I passed, and then decided, okay, well, I'm gonna get my license here in New Jersey. No reciprocity. Start with that,
Wild.
right? And on top of that, they said, well, you need a different kind of hours. So I had a K-CREP accredited master's program at 63 hours, and they said, well, you need 70 in New Jersey. And I said, well, so I need 7 more credits? Like in what? It doesn't matter.
Anything.
And at
Check
that
the
point,
box.
I was kind of doing other work. I just had twins, and I was in a new state, and I thought, well, I can't do this now. And then when I went to go back to work a couple years later, it just seemed so incredibly difficult. It was at a time, this is the 1900s. So it was at a time with no internet. So you had paper records of your supervision, and I'm calling the places I did my supervision. They're like, we don't have that. And, finding moving boxes. It was just so difficult. And so I ended up in administrative roles throughout my career that didn't require that. So I never got licensed.
And it
So
hasn't
I'm
stopped you.
one of those statistics.
Yeah.
I think Motivo has a great study. It's like 57% of people graduate from clinical programs and never get their license
Wow.
because of the hurdles of getting your supervision and all the pieces. So that's it.
Well, there's a pain point.
It
that we
is a
can-
pain
that we
point.
can shout out.
Yeah.
Hopefully somebody
Yeah.
out there is working on that.
So
Is that part of the compact to simplify that as well? I mean, the compact has to do with practicing across state lines, but that's ridiculous. Like that's
Listen.
really ridiculous
Listen.
that just because you're in Phoenix or New
Yeah.
Jersey that it's a whole different thing.
we need a national certification
Yeah,
process.
that's what
Like,
it
let's
is,
start
yeah.
with that. But yeah. So anyway, I have always been in some mental health organization in some role. I was in a role of VP of Business Development and Innovation for a national nonprofit when we had this engagement come up. It was actually with the state of Illinois to do some consulting work, and the CEO did not want to do it. And I said, I really want to do this. Do you mind if I do it on the side? And he said, go ahead. So I started an LLC, and I was the expert, quote, under Williams' consent decree for the state of Illinois in the 1900s, and loved that work, and then took on a few little clients here and there. And then by 2021, I really started to have so much interest that I said, I think I could leave. I was COO at the time of a multi-state provider based in Baltimore. And I said to my husband, I think I can do this full time. And he said, go give it a try. And I said, at the end of the year, if I can't, I'll get another real job. And within about 30 days, I had to hire another person. Within 6 months, I had 6 other people. And, now I have 5 full-time people and over 50 1099s, and we have clients all over the country and the largest IDD provider in Japan.
Wow.
So here we are.
That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful.
has
What a
been
journey.
amazing.
And you've been able to just extract so much out of your journey, and your ability to see the good in other people is something that I really admire.
Oh, thank
and you
you.
see it in yourself. I saw something where you were talking about being an advocate for yourself, and you said that if you didn't value yourself, you're not going to make yourself a priority. And it sounds like you've made yourself a priority throughout your career, really advocating for yourself along that growth.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I appreciate that. I absolutely love the Olympic rugby player, Ilona Meyer. I'm sure you know who she is. She was viral all summer because she is so fiercely unapologetic, and especially young women need more of that.
Yeah.
She recently was interviewed where they said something about imposter syndrome, and she said, I've never had that. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And I relate to that because I also feel like it's not arrogant to say I deserved everything I've earned. Why wouldn't we say? Why would I be, much more? I can't think of the word, but why would I sort of shy away from something I worked hard for?
Yeah.
You know, there's a group of women that I bonded with, and we call ourselves the female founders. There's 4 of us, and we get together for a girls' weekend once a year, but we have a text chain and we support each other. And we shared a statistic recently that said only 1.7% of women-founded companies reach over $1 million in revenue. Wow. Now that's bananas. Wow. And all of us have done that. And we all believe we worked hard and deserve that. So I don't want to be self-deprecating and say, oh, no, there was a team effort. I have an amazing team. I put together that team.
Definitely.
Right? And I think part of your own mental health should be getting really comfortable with saying, I'm proud of myself. And I've done this.
I love that. I love that so much.
And people talk about you as resilient online and, LinkedIn profile reviews and different things. Is that something that resonates a lot with you? Have you always been a resilient person, or people think that about you? Yeah. I mean, I think I have this whole bucket of trauma and traumatic things that I've come through. And I guess that's resilience, right? I mean, I lost my 4-year-old daughter in 2008 to brain cancer after, it was 100 days from diagnosis to when she died. I've talked about that before. My oldest son has been in recovery for addiction for 7 years. That was probably harder than dealing with cancer. I've lost both my parents in the span of a year, 2016 and 2017. There's so many different things that have happened, right? That I just always felt like I didn't have a choice, not in a woe is me way, but it just was like, well, I've got to get past that. How do I get past it? And I think it's my training as a solution-focused therapist, where I never really, it's not my personality and it wasn't my clinical lens to sort of lean into what's wrong. I always naturally lean into, what do we do about it? How do we get to the other side of that? So I think if that's resilience, then yes, it just feels natural. That's sort of my personality.
I'm curious, were there ever any moments during that? Because that's a lot, and I'm sorry for your losses. Definitely. I'm sorry for those losses. Was there ever a moment in that where your resilience or your perseverance was tested?
Sure. I mean, I think there was a lot of anger in that of like, why is this happening? Why her? Why me? Why our family? And then, there's a lot of that where it just feels like my plate is full of angst. You know what I mean? I don't need any more on this plate, but yet you keep getting served more and more. And so, I mean, I think resilience is something that I think is an interesting word, because there's no choice, right? There wasn't ever a time where someone said, would you like to continue with this suffering or not? Because everyone would opt for not, right? And so it's just the way you power through it and the way you look at it. I mean, I still am angry about that if I'm going to talk about that. And I still feel like that, that it just, there's no explanation for why those things happen to people, right? And there's lots of people who much worse things have happened. True. And I think that's my perspective is those are horrible things. Other people have had those things happen that had fewer resources, had fewer friends, had fewer access to money. I mean, all of those things, I had a roof over my head. I had great friends and family and support. We lived near Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which is one of the best places in the world for care. I think about how much worse it could have been if I wasn't in the position I was in. So I try to filter in perspective, but it doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it go away. Right. But I also don't want that to be my life.
Yeah, it can define you. No, you don't want it to define you.
No.
I think that's the mark of resilience, is that mindset that you have that it could be a lot worse. Things could be different, and you look at the things that you're grateful for, and you've been able to do that, and that's remarkable with the considerable losses that you had.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and anger is a primary emotion. I mean, I was listening to a clinician the other day, and it was just out of context in this like larger conversation, but he said, he tells his patients a lot of times, you should be depressed based on what you just told me you went through. That is you surviving.
Yeah.
And we need to honor that.
Yeah.
And again, that's very out of context for a broader discussion, which was mainly for clinicians. But, having anxiety, having depression, that's not necessarily the end game. That is a response of our body and minds to what can be very challenging. And To your point, some people have more resources than others. There's this line Kanye West says, money's not everything, not having it is, So like when you don't have a safety net in lots of different ways, if we look at money just as energy or resources, if you don't have the family or friendship or healthcare around you or resources, it can be extremely complicated.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And, I think the other thing that's so important to talk about is the stigma around how you should be suffering through.
Yes.
Like, what is the appropriate way to grieve?
Yes.
Because I felt that at that time, you have to find joy in your life. Your life cannot be about what's happening. So, I remember like getting a massage, at that point, and it was like so indulgent that's one of my favorite things to do when I'm stressed, right? I hold my stress in my body. So getting that massage and having some kind of judgment about, well, but your daughter's dying. Why? You shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Or, I actually met my husband right before my husband now I've been with 17 years. We met through work 6 months before she was diagnosed. And so there was actual physical comments made to me of like, how could you be dating someone right after your daughter died? It's like, well, am I never allowed to be happy again?
Wow.
What's the appropriate time that I should put on the black veil and sit in the corner? Those are so archaic ways we think about grief. It's like if something has happened to you, it makes me uncomfortable to see you smile because I think you should be feeling X.
Yeah.
And we've got to let go of that.
Yeah. Because then on the same side, it's like if you've grieved for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, well, when are you going to get over it?
When's the appropriate
so
done?
It's always someone trying to put expectations on your grief. And it's like, no, we all grieve differently.
We do. I read a couple of things during that time, and one of them was a woman who had lost a child also, and she said, I vividly remember the first time I laughed out loud and the feeling of guilt, like, should I not be laughing? And that doesn't honor, that would never honor my daughter's memory to me. She was all about laughter and fun and love, and I would never want to live a life that was anything but that.
Yeah.
Despite everything.
Yeah, she wants to see you laughing.
Absolutely.
And happy.
Yeah.
And living your life. So
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah, what a projection for us to throw onto other people as if it's binary, as if it's 0 or 1. You should be all grief or all happiness. Like that's part of the trap we walk into. Is that like that is separating the yin and the yang and having it be one be the whole. It's like, no, that we're actually a lot more complicated than that.
A lot more complicated than that.
And it's personal, you know, like what gives me peace doesn't have to be what gives you peace, you know, and I'll say, you know, probably 2 weeks after she passed, my mom and I, who's also since passed, took my kids to the beach for the weekend. And there, you know, I remember like this comment around like, oh, I would never be able to do that. If somebody's saying something like that, first of all, it's not for you to decide what my thing is. But also like the day she died for me, the day my daughter Avery, wasn't the day we lost her.
Right.
You know, she had been in hospice. She was not responsive for days. She had been sick for 100 days. Like to me, the day I lost her was the day she was diagnosed. That's when I really knew it wasn't gonna. I mean, even though they say, oh, there's a chance. Like she had peanut medulloblastoma, incredibly aggressive. There is not a survival rate for that. I mean, I knew how this was gonna go. Right. And so that to me is like the grief day. The day she died actually was peaceful because it was over.
Her relief.
And so I don't even acknowledge that day anymore. And that's the other thing. I mean, so many years in the beginning, I felt like there was this pressure to like post about, she died August 8th, 2008, 8808. So there was this pressure to like post some memorial thing and have this day where I didn't work. And I, you know, it was all this sadness. And there was just some point, one of the years where I was like, I'm just done with that. I don't want to post this big tribute thing because everyone expects me to, and then see all the comments and then have a whole day reacting to that. And I don't want to celebrate or acknowledge or stop my day. What about August 8th, 2022?
Yeah.
Why can't that be a good day?
Yeah.
So there's all these rules around ritual that we put on people that I think is unnecessary pressure on mental health.
Rules around ritual. What a
That's
turn of phrase. You seem very adept at the complex. I mean, these are complex emotions. The work you do, the work of resilience itself. I mean, it seems like this is an area of comfort despite challenge, because I feel like what's really going on in us is this complex chaos theory that finds the mean over time, and we want to focus on the mean of, well, you should be doing this because this is what most people do, as if we're not wildly complex and individualistic. And yes, we can see trends, there's data, things like that. But when we start to project what someone should do without having the backdrop of what play they're in, like, you're not even in the right book, not to mention the same page.
Right. That's absolutely right.
And going through hard things like that, like you have to have something that's driving you. You have to want to live your life to keep going and build that resilience. And so your work is very passion driven. And so how did those instances and those moments and tragedies impact the work that you were doing? Was there a time off? Was there an effort to continue growing even harder? What that look like for you?
Yeah, I definitely took a month off after that, but it had this beautiful gift of removing the pressure, to sort of give it I won't curse, but ruining the.
That's okay, right?
Yeah, you get 4 curse words.
All right, I'll use one. All right. So I will say it removed the pressure to give a shit what other people thought. And it removed the pressure and the obligation to do things I didn't want to do, because there's nothing worse than losing someone you love, right? With daughter and both my parents, 100% awful, 3 things. And so it was like, why do I continue to have a relationship with this person because I feel like I should? Like, life is too short for the should that you don't want to.
Yes.
And it's not good for my mental health. And I'm not happy when I'm with this person. I always feel stressed or I feel annoyed. So then just strip that away. So it really gives you this beautiful perspective about how short your life really is, how fragile it is. And that's so overused. I know people say that, but like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in company with someone I don't enjoy.
True.
And so it actually has that gift of just like removing all of those shoulds.
I like that. I once heard that should is could with shame cloaked over it.
You got that right.
And so all the shoulds of the world, it's again those expectations that people are putting on us and things that they think we ought to be doing with our lives when we are living our lives totally independent from them. And what does that do? It creates shame when you laugh after something tragic has happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you shouldn't have any shame around that. So I love that.
No.
Like, no F's given, no fucks given, no fucks given.
No,
I used 2 of them.
Yeah, that's it. You used up 2. Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Stacy, thanks for leading off with that. I think we're going to stack this from the personal to the organizational and then to the systemic.
Yep.
And I think it's a natural flow from where you're going. But we'll be right back after this. At Turn Productions, we craft experiences that connect, engage, and inspire. They feed the mind, they fill the heart, and they fuel connectivity. From dynamic conferences to powerful podcasts, we bring ideas to life through our proven process of planning, production, and promotion. So your audience doesn't just listen, they remember. Ready to make an impact? Let's build something unforgettable together. Visit turn.productions to get started. All right, we're back with more from Stacy DiStefano. We had a great conversation with you. Got pretty deep pretty quick. I want to pivot to another rich area for you, which is your expertise in, you have expertise in nonprofits and for-profits. I want to talk a little bit about the nonprofit.
Sure.
I want to start with what might be a dumb question, which is, what's the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit?
Tax status.
Okay.
501c3, nonprofit.
Okay. I've heard people say there are really no nonprofits. That's where I'm driving
Well,
at. And maybe
sure. Okay. So, no margin, no mission. That's a common statement. You've got to make money. You should be making money. It's what you do with the revenue that makes you a nonprofit or a for-profit, right? So if you are a nonprofit, you can reinvest that into people and capital expenses and foundations, and you should have rainy day funds, you should have profit, right? But a for-profit company would have shareholders, or a private equity-backed company, things like that. So the profits are then returned to the shareholders or the investors.
Yeah.
So that's the difference in what the profits do. There are good actors in PE and bad actors in PE. There are good nonprofits and there are, not so great nonprofits. So I don't want to say that the label makes them one way or the other.
Yeah, there's bad actors in marketing too, in the mental health marketing
Sure.
and addiction marketing, and and sometimes evil and ignorance have the same consequence. So it's like there's a lot of providers out there that may not know how to do cash flow or P&L.
Yeah.
But I asked that first question because I don't know that everybody would associate nonprofit healthcare providers or mental health providers with mergers and acquisitions, but that's something you have a lot of experience in. So go into a little bit about that and how you're helping nonprofits.
Yeah, and that happened just organically. So, what we know is there are about 100,000 provider organizations of behavioral health services in our country, and there is no definitive list of them. But it's a highly fragmented market, and what I mean by that is in any given area, there are many, many provider organizations, sometimes on the same corner or the same block, serving the same populations, competing for Medicaid dollars, for staff, for clients, for all those things. And that's across mental health, intellectual disability, addiction, things like that. And in some states, it's very easy to become a provider. In other states, it's harder. But, there are thousands of providers in every state. And what we have really seen as an industry over time is the need to consolidate that, right? And so what's happened with my firm over the years is that nonprofits particularly have come to us and said, at a certain revenue size, it's usually under $100 million, they're just too small to compete in 2025 and forward, right? Because of all the economic pressures, because of post-COVID staffing problems, because the economy, it's more expensive to borrow money. It's more expensive to buy food and gas and clothing. Those are some things that organizations provide in say, a residential setting. And so the cost to do business continues to go up. The reimbursement rates go down or stay flat. And so it's just an economic equation that some organizations, no matter how much fundraising they do, right, can't stay in business. And behavioral health is one of the only places, it's so interesting to me, like you never hear of a cardiologist saying like, we have to have a golf outing to be able to do these surgeries next week, so let's get fundraising. Like behavioral health is the only place where we have a gala or a golf outing or a gift auction. We have to raise money to deliver care. It's absurd. So we have to move away as a business model from relying on philanthropy and fundraising to cover operational costs. And that's what some nonprofits have been forced to do. So over the years, it's a long-winded way to say, organizations have come to us and say, our mission's important, we're a big employer in our community, we want to keep doing what we're doing, but we can't keep doing it in the way we've been doing it. And so we find them partners to merge with and become larger economies of scale, savings organizations, right? And that's very similar to what happens on the PE side, right? They tuck in acquisitions, they become platform providers, they have economies of scale, they have savings, they can share administrative costs. So what we've really done is take the best of what we've learned working with private equity-backed transactions and translated that into nonprofit merger and acquisitions in like a playbook, which we've created, which honors the nuances of nonprofits and starts with matching missions and doesn't start with the financials, like on the for-profit side.
Okay, so I think I learned something there. So you're pairing nonprofits together.
Correct.
And they're remaining nonprofits.
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
that's interesting. Okay, so
Correct.
I thought it was the other way when we were talking earlier. So that's really great. And I think like the economies of scale that you get when they're like you have one person processing payroll, and you can bring that under one roof.
That's
that
right.
person can do the exact same thing with the click of a button. You
That's
save
right.
a lot on the expense
That's right.
side. So I like that even more.
Well, think about this, there's so many states that have hundreds of providers, right? And so if you have 5 $20 million providers, You have 5 executive directors. You have 5 CFOs. You have 5 clinical directors, right? Your administrative overhead is high because your revenue is small. If you're $20 million, if you merge them together and you create a $100 million organization, your savings immediate because you don't need 5 of each of those roles, right? And your purchasing power when you buy things like health insurance for your team, it just makes good economic sense.
And the ultimate goal is impact for the client at the end of the day. And so you want to increase that. And so if you can save money, you increase the amount that you can serve.
That's right.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It is. It's incredible to me that we have left mental health as the very last bastion of this work, because we saw hospitals roll up as health systems and immediately have a moat and own all the physician relationships or be in their pocket with physician relationships that would lock down a region. And then, of course, there's some or some truly national brands, you know, the Mayo Clinics of the world that people will fly in from all over. But then we started to see it with, like, I mean, yeah, if you're doing cardio and ortho, you're you know, you can charge a premium.
Yeah.
But we saw it with, like, ophthalmology or dentistry, everybody else.
Yeah.
Chiropractic. I mean, it doesn't have to be the franchise model, but it has to be the economies of scale model where you don't have 5 HR people when one will do. It just doesn't make any sense. And so as we get a lot more sophisticated with outcomes and what's working best for people or segments of people or certain people, and then we get efficiencies in the business units, which I feel, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but like a lot of clinicians come into this work for the love and almost a philanthropic heart. There's a great book called, what's it called? The E-Myth, the myth of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Okay. And it talks about like a pie maker. She just loves making pies. They're amazing pies. She goes in and starts a pie business. And then all of a sudden, she has 3 jobs, and she only likes one of them. Right. One of them is making pies. The other one is future forecasting service lines and product deliverables. And then the other job is looking in the past about how did things go, these managerial responsibilities. Yep. And she's just like, I want to make pies. And I feel like a lot of therapists and clinicians and counselors whose practice grows on them at all, or maybe especially nonprofits, you know, great work. And I've worked for nonprofits, some amazing and some a hot mess.
Oh, yeah.
And you've probably seen the gamut. What do you see as like the challenges they run into?
Yeah. I want to comment on that, but I want to say one thing first that I think underpins all of this, right, is that we have to change the way we talk about nonprofit merger and acquisition, because you hit the nail on the head. On all the other industries, and even in behavioral health on the for-profit side, when you see all these announcements, you know, so-and-so, ABC Health was acquired by, you know, EFG Health, it's celebrated. There's a financial incentive to the CEO of the organization that's acquired. It's expected. And when you see that narrative on the nonprofit side, notice it. It's, oh my gosh, it's terrible. They got acquired by so-and-so. I guess they couldn't survive on their own. Why do we do that? Why do we see this like pejorative nature of nonprofit transactions, but we celebrate the for-profit side?
What is your theory on that?
Totally.
I mean, I just think people don't understand that you need to run a business like a business, right? And it's a strength in leadership for an organization to a leader to identify that I don't know that we can keep going on our mission and have that impact on our own. So I'm going to find us a partner so we can stay sustainable.
Yes.
That leader is not making it about them and their role.
Ego.
They're making it about the people they serve and the people they employ. Right? And we should celebrate that, but we don't. We see it as a failure.
Yeah, I like what you said, because you said we need to run a business as a business. Nonprofits are businesses
Still a business.
first.
Still a business.
You file for your C Corp first, and then you get your 501c3 status. And so you operate it as a business. And I think with nonprofits, and if they're founder led, there is emotion tied to it. There is, the mission is important, but the mission overrides the ability to make money at the end of the day for a lot of folks. And if you're not running the business properly, you're not serving the mission. You're not serving the end person.
No, and on the for-profit side, right, in other industries, there's terms for board seats, board limits. I have clients who they've had board members for 30 years.
Yes.
I mean, that's bananas.
Yeah.
That's not how it should work, right?
Yeah.
And so you have those feelings of ownership of, we don't want to change who we are. And that's really about the legacy board member. That's not really what's best for the organization.
Yeah.
So you have this underpinning on the nonprofit struggle and the M&A and this last kind of silo out in the field for mental health and nonprofits. What about the sort of the nonprofit system as a whole? What would you change if you could? You wave a wand and you say nonprofit mental health providers are really missing the boat when it comes to X, Y, Z.
Ooh, I'll say something controversial and I'll say something more mainstream. I think the controversial piece is there are some limits on what you can pay executives in nonprofit organizations, and those limits don't apply to for-profit organizations. So if you have a talented leader, whether it's CEO, CFO, CHRO, whatever it is, and you have organization A, which is private equity backed, and they could make $1 zillion a year, and you have nonprofit organization B, where they're capped at $150,000. Like, the mission only takes you so far, doesn't pay your mortgage. So let's be real. You know, you put in some dues on the nonprofit side, but if all things are equal, we're actually preventing talent in our nonprofit organizations by allowing that cap to remain.
Is that a standard thing? Is that a cap?
Some states have it.
Really?
I'm actually seeing now, with more pressure and more examination on Medicaid line items, are their salaries too high? Some are. I certainly know of an organization that, when it was about $300 million, is paying its CEO $1.5 million. That's absurd, right? So there should be some scaled guidelines. But also, if you've been a CEO for 38 years, and your organization is $50 million, you should be making more than $150,000. I mean, that's just not comparable anymore. And so I think that's a big thing.
That doesn't sound absurd to me.
No.
I mean, maybe you have more nuance on all of this, but
Yeah.
you said a $300 million organization. I mean, that's 0.5% of revenue to
That's
drive that
unheard of.
ship.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at 990s, because salary is really public, right? The largest nonprofit in our country, which is around $600 million, the CEO makes about $900,000.
Wow.
And think about that if it was, anything else, Google or a tech company, I mean, you'd be making millions,
Yeah.
right? But that's not the same in nonprofit.
And it's controversial because why?
Because people feel like it's a nonprofit should be poor. You should not make money.
Yes.
And that is not what it's about. It's a tax status, not a business model.
This is a full circle shame thing.
It is a shame
Like,
thing.
we haven't left the first
We're
conversation.
still shaming.
We're
Yeah.
saying
We're
you
saying.
should or shouldn't do these things, and when we apply these artificial pressures, or we're projecting on,
That's right.
You should be doing good work. I mean, I get it if you want to go to Calcutta and start a home for children. That is worthy work. Like, no judgment, like worthy work, and pay yourself what you want. Like, if you want to go, sacrifice your time and work for something greater good that you believe in, wonderful. We don't need to put this on nonprofits, and it's capping them.
Yeah.
It's like, we see it in sports teams. This
Yeah.
would be like, okay, you can pay Michael Jordan $30 million, but you over here can pay $1 million.
Well,
baseball
I'll be
may
more
be like
controversial. It's like women's sports versus
Yeah.
men's
Ooh,
sports.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
look at the WNBA and the NBA.
Yeah.
This
It's
is what
night
we're
and day.
saying. I mean, the nonprofits are the WNBA of this conversation, and we don't value their work enough to pay talented leaders.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
then
a
we
shame.
lose them in the nonprofit
course we
space too
do.
for a profit. Because,
course we do.
And again, the ultimate mission, the ultimate end user of those services gets a lower quality, do you say?
Well, and it's the most vulnerable in our society that are typically served by a Medicaid provider in the nonprofit space. So the most medically complicated, the most, mental health, severely mentally ill, the homeless population,
Co-occurring.
all of those things, foster care, all of those things, we expect this incredible dedication for pennies compared to what we pay on the for-profit side. So I think that's an issue that has to shift. And then I think just systemically, part of what we talked about in the beginning with the licensure, national licensure, we should not limit where a clinician lives in the country. There should be a national license that you can just carry wherever you go.
Yeah.
You're not going to convince me that the state is so different in Alabama that it is in Tennessee that we need 2 levels of certification. I'm just not buying that. So that's one piece. And I just think the level of, scrutiny on nonprofit providers is unfair, truly. What my clients have to go through to justify pennies it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And if I'm hearing part of that correctly, it's that some of the asymmetrically complex conditions or, issues that people are going through find their way. It could be social determinants, or it could be, comorbidity or co-occurring factors that, a nonprofit, FQHC or something like that is the catch-all for these, yet
CCBHCs, all of that, yeah.
And then we're seeing, in real time grant funding come and go and whiplash back and forth. And
that's right.
And that's, and they're beholden to that, and they're beholden to report out on the progress they've made against those grant funds, which is tricky as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think this is a broader conversation about the danger of going back to a block grant model, just further silos and slices and dices the funding that's already inadequate, right? So when you think about whole person care, which is what we should be doing, because I'll just tell you this funny anecdote. I was with a friend a couple weeks ago, and I was preparing remarks for a keynote, and I said, I'm talking about whole person care, and she said, well, why would it be anything else? She's not in our industry. And I thought about that, like, who would ever want partial person care?
Yeah.
Right? We all should be striving for whole person care. But the challenge with that, with providers, is, who do I pay? Who pays me for this piece? Is it intellectual disability? Is it autism? Is it mental health? Is it physical health? It's all of that. But the funding streams are different. And so you create these artificial silos, and we have to slice and dice people to treat them. And that is a huge barrier to our system.
I'm curious, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing now with administration change and announcing that federal funds may stop for some of these organizations? The organizations that you're working with, are they freaking out, or what challenges are you seeing?
Oh yeah, I had actually just created this sort of war room call where now we have a standing meeting once a week where our clients the CEOs can just call in a safe space to vent and talk about what they're seeing. But there are big consequences to this. Like, so for instance, in the the international funding that's on the table about being pulled back, and people are using specific examples about where it may be fraudulent. But the reality is those things are being spent on things like family reunification counseling when there's a kid who is in foster care. There's nothing that's nefarious about that. So to talk about those funds with the one-off, tiny programs that may be questionable, that's such a disservice to the 99.9% of the stuff that's important. There are so many things that people are afraid to publicly talk about, but that funding is so incredibly important for very vulnerable populations, and without it, that work can't continue. So I hate that this is the political football of the day, because mental health is already challenging enough to deliver. Like, our clients, our providers don't need more, we're already walking into a hurricane trying to get things done. We don't need more wind, against us. So it's really discouraging.
But you have your focus is solution based.
Yeah.
I love that. It stood out to me, because I think so much of our traditional medical care has been problem based and looking at the things that have already happened as opposed to being proactive about it. And it makes me think of kind of the illness wellness continuum, that spectrum of, you know, disease and disability diagnosis. But on the other end, on the wellness side, you have awareness, education, and you're uplifting people to flourish in life. And you were doing that for nonprofit. You're empowering nonprofits. When you were speaking, I could just sub in like my little sister, and I'm like, just talk to her and tell her all those things too. Like, it was beautiful to hear that. And so like the solution based way that you approach your work is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I, was trained in solution-focused therapy in grad school, and, it was just like everything else. It was like person-centered, Rogerian, or, psycho, the Freudian, all those things. And when I found solution-focused therapy, it was introduced to me in a course, and it was like click. Like, that really speaks to me at the core. I've always been okay, so what do we do about it person? Not like lay on the couch and tell me what happened when you were 5. Like, no disrespect to people that enjoy that. But to me, that's like, that doesn't help me go forward. I don't want to talk about what's behind me. I want to talk about how to get to the thing I want to get to. So like, let's plan through. So it just really spoke to who I am as a person, and that has informed everything in my life. It's how I build teams. It's how I work with clients. It's how I, sometimes to frustrating degrees, deal with my family and my kid, my husband and my kids, where, it's like, do you want to complain or do you want the solution? Because I'm always going into, okay, well, that's the problem. Here we go. And sometimes they're like, we just want to complain, but, but that type of philosophy, I just think it propels me forward.
Yeah. And that's fascinating for probably another day. We're going to wrap in a minute, but like regardless of modality, like the clinical alignment, like you said, I found solution-based and it just snapped. It just clicked. And there were other people in that classroom who were like, what's this? I'm Freudian or whatever.
I want to lay on the couch.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like finding the thing that works for you and more so than, well, which one is best? Like, which one is the ultimate winner? It's like we're playing this tournament of like modalities.
Hunger Games.
Only one must thrive. All right, we're gonna wrap. Stacy, this has been enlightening to me. It's been really. I mean, you're an industry expert, and it's really cool to have you come on the show. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I've enjoyed this.
I have too.
Yeah. Before we wrap, tell us one piece of content that you're tracking with lately. It could be a book, podcast. It could be a record. It could be just something you wrote. Anything come to mind?
That I'm tracking?
Well, just you're reading or you've heard about or is in your queue, Netflix show.
I am obsessed. I don't watch TV at all. That's a fun fact about me.
Yeah.
I don't even have a TV. But the Mel Robbins book, Let Them. I'm so into the Let Them theory. That is just completely right up my alley. Like, you do you. I'm not getting involved in that. So I think that is a powerful book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
She doesn't need my endorsement, but she's going to get it.
I got another question. What's your score prediction?
Eagles by 14.
Ooh, 14. Oh. Okay.
All right. We're talking full circle. We are talking Super Bowl. Again, we'll know. We're going to come. We're going to watch this and see. But Stacy, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hope to talk to you again soon.
Anytime.
Yeah.